I believe this, that you have to have a little, can I curse?
Hell yeah.
You got to have a little motherfucker in you to be successful. You can't be successful without it. You have to have that, but you have to do things the right way. Martin Luther King's quote, and sometimes I butcher it, but there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
So true. Welcome to Tip the Scales podcast. I'm Jenn Gore, and I'm your new host forever. Maria has now left the country. I'm here with Jeremy, and he is with ClaimAngel, and we're going to have a great conversation today. Jeremy.
Hi.
Can you please introduce yourself on Tip the Scales?
Sure. My name is Jeremy Alters. I'm current CEO and founder of ClaimAngel, which is a litigation funding marketplace similar to Uber. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm a former trial lawyer for 20 plus years. I practiced nationally, was licensed in Florida, practiced nationally, handled class actions, mass torts, personal injury cases, med mal, tried dozens of cases, settled over $6 billion in cases.
$6 billion.
$6 billion. Yeah.
That's a large number.
It's a large number.
Can you illuminate the type of case that was?
Sure. So I sued the 41 of the national banks for the resequencing of overdraft charges on debit cards, primarily for low income and minority people. They were charging them.
This is predatory behavior, basically.
Yeah, completely.
How did you get into that work?
Pure luck. One of my in-house people at the firm needed to borrow $500 to pay their overdraft fees and came to me and said, can I borrow $500 against my paycheck or whatever? And I said, yeah, of course. What's going on? They told me, I said, bring me your bank statement. And then I had a bunch of the younger people in the firm bring me their bank statements. And they were all getting these overdraft charges being resequenced on the weekend. So instead of owing one charge, they owed 5.
You know, this has happened to me. I think it's happened to anyone who's had a bank account.
Yep.
If you're not paying attention, you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, that's what they did. And they bought a program. It was an algorithm, algorithmic program. The banks bought, not all of them.
This was a program?
It was a program, and they were saving billions of dollars by, or shall we say, making billions of dollars by having the program run the charges in reverse order. So the biggest charge first, as if it happened on Friday night. And by Sunday, it had overdrafted 5 times instead of the one time you actually overdrafted. And it was all computer based, and people were paying $235 instead of $35. It was ridiculous. And I sued them for all of that.
And what were you able to prove that showed this was predatory?
We proved that they used an algorithmic program and that they were targeting
low income,
particularly low income. Particular banks were targeting low income people who tend to overdraft their accounts.
What year was this?
I filed the case in December of 2008 and settled with the first bank in January of 2011.
So this was happening in the early 2000s? Mm-hmm.
Still happens today.
I remember it being in college, and like you go to your bank and you're looking in there and you're like, there's $300.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why did this happen? What just happened to me? Wait, the money's gone. No, the money's back. It was such a racket. It was brilliant on the bank's part. It was a really brilliant thing. Whoever created the algorithm was really brilliant. But
what was the bank telling people when they would inquire?
Oh, there was no rule on how we sequenced the weekend charges. That's what they were telling them. Because for checks, for example, on checks, there is no rule. No one knows when the check actually comes in as to what comes first, chicken or the egg. Here you can tell it's computerized. You can tell what charge happened when, and they were just ignoring it and letting it happen to people. And that was the first big one. We settled the total lot of cases. I think there was 19 banks that ended up settling. And you may remember Concepcion versus AT&T. There was an arbitration provision that was unconscionable that went to the U.S. Supreme Court. That was in the middle of one of our cases. So we ended up losing because of arbitration on a couple of the banks. But we settled with, I want to say 19. It might have been less banks for just under $1.6 billion.
And did you anticipate that was going to be that big?
Not in the very beginning.
Okay.
But when we got to the depth of how much the banks were doing it, yes. In fact, the number that we settled for, the bank's stock actually went up after we settled because they had already built in the loss.
Wow.
Listen, corporations, and I'll say this as a non-lawyer, I'll say this as a lawyer. Corporations, generally speaking, are evil. They are not here to help They're here to hurt and take your money. And I have this, I don't believe in guns. I'm not a gun guy, but at home I have an acrylic gun with a bullet in it, and it has Pfizer's name on it. And it says, there's a plaque on it. It says, people don't kill, corporations do.
Wow.
And it's one of the mantras I live by when I practice. And that goes for a personal injury case, a car crash, to a medical negligence case, to
Insurance companies.
all of them.
So you're really doing these non-personal injury type cases.
Uh-huh.
You then did some mass tort personal injury cases.
I did. I started with PI, major car wrecks, trucking cases, lots of med mal. Fell into class actions and mass tort at the same time. So I did this class action. I got a label somehow. They started calling me the king of class actions. I was pretty young. I thought that was cool. Big mistake on my part, by the way. Shouldn't have thought it was cool. Shouldn't have embraced it, but I did. And then mass torts, I started Chinese drywall, which was a mass tort case that ended up getting seated in New Orleans. And I never made it to the end of either of those cases, just so you know. I got into a whole big fight with the Florida bar and never made it to the end. But I did thankfully get most of my money, so that was okay.
So then what happened, leading up to you kind of becoming in the news and all this controversy that surrounded you?
So in 2010, yes, 2010, I was at the AAJ convention in Hawaii, the Midwinter Convention. Jen, you're too young to have been there.
I go to AAJ, but I wasn't
I
at
don't
that
think you were
one.
there then.
I wasn't at that one. I was in law school.
Yes, and I flew back from the convention with met with my partner Bruce Rogo, who, if anybody knows, Bruce is an esteemed constitutional lawyer. He kind of looks like Abraham Lincoln. He's in his 80s now, but he's just a guy. He's really one of those guys. And I flew in. I met with Bruce, and one of our partners called us into the office and advised us that she had used operating money to pay, trust account money to pay operating bills
At your firm.
Mm-hmm.
And what was her role again?
She was managing partner at the time.
She was an attorney.
Yes, a very good attorney. There were lots of personal issues going on between her and her own life. And I found out. And back at the time, there was no requirement to self-report, which I imagine many states there is now, because in Florida there is. But you didn't have to self-report a problem if you solved it.
Okay.
So I solved the problem. Like, sold watches. I did whatever I had to do to get the money back in the account so that no client missed a penny and everything was timely, and I did that. It was all good. This was in the middle of the beginning of that bank case and that Chinese drywall case. So because of the money, things got tight. It got very tight. And we had gone from 12 employees before these cases, maybe 15. I think we were up to 250 employees in 6 months.
Wow.
Chinese drywall was a massive undertaking of climbing in attics and doing all sorts of things. But the firm screwed up, and we screwed up, and as a result, it's my responsibility. So I screwed up, and but I fixed it, and no client was harmed. Nothing ever happened. I know there's rumors about me. There's all kinds of stuff. I went to jail. None of that ever happened. Okay. I never went to jail.
Set the record straight.
None of that. Was never criminally charged with anything. Nothing like that. It was an ethical problem, and it was real. And I just took it head on.
Now,
I fixed it.
Let's just pause here for a second. There could be some non-lawyers, paralegals, law students that listen to this podcast.
Yep.
Can you explain what the ethical dilemma is?
Yeah. So you're not permitted to use, and I knew this then, clients' trust account money in your operating account to pay bills or for any other reason. It's the holy sanctum of trial law. Don't touch your trust account. Okay? Our firm did, and I'm responsible for it. And it didn't just happen once. It happened over a period of 7 months. It even happened after the people who were doing it were fired.
How?
Because I failed, because I didn't put protocols and procedures in place to make sure it didn't happen again.
So I'm going to stop here for a second and ask you a very important question, which I think is obvious based on what you just said. But we have people that we're in this community with that are great trial lawyers, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
who feel that they have their own law firm, but they feel like having business skills isn't really what they have to focus on, or that, I'm really just a lawyer. What do you say to that?
Be very, very careful.
Because most of the reasons that people get disbarred is not legal.
Almost always. It's rarely because you violated attorney-client privilege or work product. It's because you messed up with your trust account, or you did something wrong, you spent money the wrong way, which is what we did. And the irony of the whole thing is I went through a 4-year case against the Florida bar, and I won. The judge actually exonerated me. She said that I was heroic. She used that phrase, which I appreciated, because I did everything I could to get the money back and do it right. But that didn't matter in Florida. I thought it mattered. I was super excited. I'm like, all right, I won. I took polygraphs. I did everything you could imagine. But look, at the end of the day, the bar was right. And it hurts me to say that, but they were right in the sense that this is my firm. This is my responsibility. And I can't just be a lawyer.
The buck stops with you.
It does.
Yeah.
And I had equity partners and all of that, but I was the majority shareholder, and I blew it. And lawyers do it all the time, by the way.
And did the other partners face the same scrutiny?
0.
Why? You were the majority?
That I don't know. I don't know. The judge in the case said that they were prosecuting the wrong person. She actually sanctioned the bar and said that they should be prosecuting someone else. But the Supreme Court didn't see it that way. And they are the end all be all. There's nothing we can do. And they actually threw the judge off the case. They threw the facts out. They threw the evidence out. And they immediately suspended me. And I think it was about 8 months later, they disbarred me. And
were you shocked by all of this?
I was shocked by that because I had won.
No, you when you say you won your ethics.
Yeah, so in
case.
Florida, they assign a judge that's a referee. I don't know if it's like this in every state. They're the referee. They sit over the case. You put on evidence like a trial. I was actually cross-examining people in my own case, even though I had a lawyer. And you prove your case. We hired forensic experts and computer experts and all of that. I took polygraphs, you name it. But it didn't change the same thing. And I said from the beginning, before all of this happened, when the bar came to me, I said, if you want to blame me for not putting protocols in place, not watching over it properly, I take responsibility. I didn't authorize the transfers. I said that. But in many ways, de facto, it is my authorization. Even if there's a managing partner in place, it is, I see what they're saying. It took them to tell me that, but I see what they're saying. They're like, look, as you said, Jen, the buck stops with you. Mm-hmm. And they're right. And listen, I live with that for, I essentially haven't practiced law since 2013. Didn't get disbarred till 18, but it was hard to practice when this is hanging over your head.
So you go from being this trial lawyer that has these amazing results, mm-hmm. and I'm sure this was pretty tied to your identity.
Yes, it was my identity.
How did you, there could be people listening right now that are in the same circumstance, they're facing some type of challenge like this. Like, how did you handle that?
That's a really good question. I just did.
You had kids. You had bills. You had to.
It didn't stop. Life kept going. I had some good friends who helped out. I was fortunate in one sense. The case dragged on for so long that I had settled some of those bank cases and was the instrumental reason I was lead counsel. Talk about a fall from grace. I was lead counsel at 39 years old of the biggest case in the United States.
That's incredible.
And then I was removed with one article. There was an article that was leaked that said Alters misappropriated money from his trust account. And the next day, the other counsel or my friends are saying, you got to step down. You got to step down. So one thing that you should know is you never back down from a fight, no matter what it is. And you admit what you did or didn't do the best you can based on what you believe, And I wasn't going to back down from the fight, and I wasn't going to step down, not quietly. And because I created the case. Now, I want to be clear. Law firms made $70 to $120 million each on this case. And that's what I was supposed to make. And, I had to fight for my money, and we made a deal for all the work I performed.
Ultimately, you got paid some level on these.
I got paid most of what I was supposed to get.
But they wanted you to leave with nothing.
Yes. They made that very clear. Right?
Was this kind of like, oh, well, now we can divide the pie with less people?
Absolutely. And think about it this way. The people who weren't that heavily involved in the case, but were very powerful in certain communities, got more heavily involved. I'll leave names out. It's not necessary, but
there's a lot of politics involved in this story.
It was ridiculous. Think about it this way. The first case settled, I'll leave the defendant nameless, but the fee was over $100 million. The first of the group of cases. I handled that case essentially. My firm, not just me, but my firm handled that case by myself with the firm. We should have gotten the lion's share of that fee. People who said, we don't want any of that fee. We just want to be in the case. They swooped in.
They wanted the fee.
They want the fee. So you get in a fight. But they had leverage.
Of course. And so you end up getting paid on some of this work.
Yep.
You are facing like, hey, I got to kind of reinvent myself. I got to start over.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think, I don't know, what am I going to do next?
Not then.
At the time.
At the time. So I actually partnered with a lawyer in New York who came in and helped out. His name's Ben Morelli. I don't know if you know Ben, but he's a phenomenal trial lawyer in New York. Ben and I became partners, Morelli Alters, New York and Florida. And we kept going, but it got heavier and heavier. And Ben stood by me.
You weren't disbarred. You were just in suspension.
It wasn't even that.
You weren't even
It was just in the midst of a
suit.
Yeah, that went on forever. 5 years.
So when it comes to resolution and they say, sorry, we're going to disbar you, that's what I'm saying. What was your mindset then?
Disbelief.
Shock.
In that moment, because even my lawyer didn't think that was going to happen. Like we thought we would get a public admonishment or something like that.
Which was totally possible.
Totally. But I was exonerated. When they laid out 8 months later, so we went to the hearing. I'm in total shock. I'm like, and I know them and they know me. Not personally, but I know the justices, they know me. And I left there and I'm like, what just happened? My lawyer goes, welcome to the bar in Florida. And I said, okay. I was angry, really angry. But 8 months later, their ruling came out and they wrote pages and pages. Now keep in mind, the judge of the lower court had written 71 pages exonerating me and 21-page order saying the bar maliciously prosecuted me. She didn't quite go that far, but almost there, and told them to pay me costs. So I was feeling good. When I read the Supreme Court order, which I did not do the day it came out, I couldn't bring myself to do it. But sometime around Christmas of that year, maybe a couple weeks later, I read it and I was like, I don't agree with everything in it, but it's logical. It makes sense. How could I not see this?
You had a blind spot to it because you didn't want it to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all do this to ourselves. Everyone does this.
Yeah, we do. Especially in the world we live in and what we do. We try to convince people of 6 people we don't know of things all the time in a trial. And you can convince yourself of anything. Look, let me be very clear. I was stupid. I was ignorant. I was blind.
But this is also a human condition because think about how many times somebody's about to go to trial and they're hell-bent on they're going to win this case and they've convinced themselves the bad facts aren't that bad.
That's right.
And they've convinced themselves that this fact over here is going to be the Hail Mary.
Yep.
And they're so sure. And then you get there and then the whole case falls apart. So like the power of your own mind, because it does not want to accept this as a possibility.
It happens in your trials. It happens in your
everywhere.
relationships.
Relationships.
It happens with your kids, your wife, your husband. It happens everywhere. The mind is the most powerful thing in the world. And look, I at some point convinced myself that I'm in the right. Let me be very clear to all the lawyers, paralegals, everybody out there. Ethics is the most powerful thing that can destroy your career. It can destroy it, but it's not their fault. It's yours. You don't pay attention to it. It's yours. And I took my eyes off the ball and didn't pay attention, and then probably made it worse by, as you said, Jen, putting my head in the sand and trying to solve my problems. When the shit was hitting the fan, excuse my language, I went to solve the problems by bringing money into the firm to solve the trust account problems.
You should have just called the bar.
That's right.
You should have called the bar and say, hey, this news came to my lap today. What should I do?
Yeah, and I didn't. Now, again, back then you didn't have to self-report. Today you'd have to do that.
But also, self-reporting is kind of like a CYA.
Yep.
I just did, like, if you're at a crime scene and you call 911 and say, I just showed up here and someone's dead.
Yeah.
It's like.
The question you have to ask yourself then, Jen, is what if it's a self-defense call? So you're at the crime scene, but now you're involved in the crime, but it was self-defense. And that's what it was. And so I figured, and I think I may have been right about this. It was what we called back then a Hobson's choice. Do I report it? They shut everything down. The clients never get their money the right way.
You stir the pot.
Yeah. Or do I solve it? And because there was no self-reporting rule, I solved it. They didn't disbar me for that. They did not. They disbarred me for allowing the trust account. In fact, they think that, or at least some of the ones they believe I did, which I take responsibility for. So there were dozens of transactions. I want to point out no client was ever hurt. Thank God. But it was not because they couldn't have been. They could have been.
I think what you're saying is just how you responded to it maybe was different than we don't know, but maybe if you had responded to it in a different way, there could have been a different narrative. We'll never know, right?
We will never know.
And a lot of this, which can be a little scary when you think about it as a lawyer, it comes down to the discretion of the bar.
Yep.
They have discretion.
They do.
This is not 100% binary.
Nope. And if we think it is, we're being
delusion.
Foolish. That's right.
So all this to say, you still do work in the legal field. You do consulting.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing different things
Mm-hmm.
for a period of time. What's the next chapter?
So I did consulting for a while. I still do it a little bit with a firm called Berman Law Group and 10X Law. Great guys, great firm. And I teach lawyers how to be lawyers. I teach lawyers how to be trial lawyers. I teach them how to handle their cases properly. I teach them how to stay out of ethical trouble. It's their case. They're the boss. But I'm kind of telling them, hey, I would send this demand letter this way. I would depose someone this way. We go into a courtroom. We do mock trials. I'll cross-examine people, do a voir dire and opening, kind of show them how to do it. I enjoy that. It's a lot of fun. It's a way of me staying connected to the only thing I'm good at, which is trial law. And from that, we developed a company called ClaimAngel. And ClaimAngel spawned out of this ethical dilemma, which is very interesting because people don't think of ClaimAngel that way. ClaimAngel is a litigation funding marketplace, the only one in the country, but lawyers are soon going to face an ethical dilemma with funding.
Now, you say it's a litigation funding marketplace. What about clients that just need money to live on? Does it fall into that bracket too?
Yes. So we have 27 funding companies on our platform that fund the clients at one set rate, which is 27.8%. They compete for the business. So if you think of Uber is a marketplace. People don't think of it that way, but it's a marketplace. We want to go today to O'Hare Airport from where we are. We put the details in. Same on ClaimAngel. The paralegal or lawyer puts the details of the case in. Uber sets the rate for the ride. We set the rate at 27.8%. And then 50 drivers will compete to pick you up, Jen. 27 funders will compete to get that funding, and it'll all be done by speed. And that's what we do. So that could be used for rent. That could be used for medical bills. That could be used for surgery. That could be used for their needs. The accident has likely put them in a worse position than they were before it. Some people are fortunate and it doesn't affect them, but those who it does, this money can be used as a tool. We say to buy time and turn time into power. Because one of the worst things when you're running a firm is you've got, I'll make up the number, 100 cases. On your forecast that those cases are worth the policy limits of $100,000, all of them. But the clients,
they can't wait.
And they need money now, and they see $40,000. The insurance companies are good at this. They squeeze them. They say, well, we'll offer them just enough to make it tempting to squeeze them out of the case. And then you end up being forced to settle because the client needs the money. ClaimAngel can provide money that gives clients that time. It takes the weight of that weight off their shoulders.
So let's go back to just basics. Personal injury lawyers around the country are aware of the idea of funding. There is two types of funding that I think most people are aware of. There's funding for the law firm where you can borrow money for the cost of litigation. Let's say you got to litigate this case and it's going to cost you $50,000. You can get funding for that.
Yes.
What we're talking about is like advances to the client.
Yes.
I don't know if you do the first one that I mentioned.
Which part?
Funding law firms and litigation costs.
We should have that up and running within the next 3 months,
Okay,
but
so
it is not
that's
currently
not
going
the
on.
current product. The one that you're talking about is the clients need basically access to money that the case has not either gone to trial or it has not settled. And, the client is going to need some type of money to survive or get through life during this period of time.
Right.
Now, funding has had a bad rap in a lot of personal injury lawyers' eyes because of the rates. So historically, what can you talk about? You don't need to say specific funders, but like we all know a lot of who they are. And just let's do simple math.
So the kind of math I know is simple.
The client needs $5,000 or the client needs $10,000. Maybe their case is going to be worth $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. They're going to get money in 6 months. But right now, they need $10,000.
Yep.
They're not going to work for the next month. They have to go to a surgery, whatever the case may be. They borrow $10,000 from a traditional funding source. The firm approves it in terms of saying the case can sustain it. What happens?
Case settles a year later, and the $10,000 that they were funded, which is a non-recourse funding, turns into $32,000 or $33,000.
How is that possible?
So it's a non-recourse funding, which means the funding company is giving the client money. If the client loses the case, there's no recourse. They don't have to pay it back.
Which is a benefit to these clients.
Benefit, a risk to the funding companies and a benefit. And because of that, there's no direct regulation. Some states have it, but there's no direct regulation on it being a usury loan or anything like that because it's not a loan. It's a non-recourse funding. So they're actually buying a purchase interest in the case. So they can charge in many states whatever they want. And the client needs some money and they're desperate and they sign it and they don't realize it. So
predatory.
Yeah.
We're back to that.
We're back to that.
Does the law firm and the client realize how high the rate is?
I doubt it.
And when we've had conversations about this, I've been in the business a long time. We don't fund every single case, obviously. We use funding sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, it never struck me how high these rates are. I knew they're high, but what you're describing is they're paying 3 times what they borrowed.
If they're lucky.
And my understanding, I do know from some of the bigger cases we've had where the person, was going through surgeries, the longer the case takes, some of these funding companies, the rates, it gets worse and worse and worse. There are some that they cut the accruing interest after a period.
Yep.
So it's not like straightforward, obvious what you're going to owe.
That's right.
And so what does it say on the sheet if you were to audit this? You're a listener today. You're looking at your law firm. You have some funding going on. How can you go look at this? Like, where is it going to be obvious? But prior to settlement.
It's not going to be obvious.
Okay.
You're going to have to do math. Every firm will have a contract. The contract will be between the client and the funding company. And in there will be rates. And those rates will range from 36% to 250%.
And where are you seeing 250%?
In a lot of contracts.
Like, does that kick in after 9 months? You're saying that's right out of the gate.
Yeah, so they'll pay 250%. Let's call it, I'm gonna make the number up, but let's call it 4.99% a month compounding over the course of the loan will be over 250%.
So it does not say 250% on there that would catch a lawyer's eye.
Correct. We had a funding come across our desk, a buyout. I can use this as an example, 2 of them. One is a medical surgical funding. So the surgery should have cost an ACDF probably about $20,000. The funding company paid the surgeon, whatever the rate was. I don't know what it was, but somewhere around $20,000. and the charge is $250,000. So at any time you settle the case, you got to pay them $250,000. That's 10x. Okay.
How is it possible?
Because they couldn't get the surgery any other way, and that's what the funding company charges. Now, should a lawyer be on the lookout for this and not let that happen? I would argue, knowing ethics the way I do, you have an ethical duty not to let that happen. Okay. When there's more reasonable money out there, you have an ethical duty. A second example, we had a funding where a client wanted to get $5,000 more dollars. They had already received $117,000, big case. $5,000 more dollars. The origination fee on the buyout. So they're buying out the 117, giving them $5, so $122,000. For that $5,000, they had to pay an origination fee of $8,500.
That's insane.
And the interest rate was 150% a year.
So, I mean, we're talking about, this is like shark loans. Like, what? This is like something from the 90s.
It is.
Like the mob.
It is, but
What are we doing?
so it's like loan sharking in a sense, but it's not a loan.
Yeah.
That's the catch. It's not a loan. Listen, the bars, I know the bars well. They hate funding. Okay.
But they hate it because they're so greedy. This is greed.
It's great. It's great. But let me take their position for a moment.
They're saying we're putting out money with no recourse.
We're
I
only winning
hear
on 6 out of 10 cases, they're saying. Well, then my argument is
do better.
That's right. My argument is you got to underwrite it
You
better.
got to do better underwriting. They pretty much want to do no underwriting.
They don't do much.
And then they want to make the law firm do the underwriting when it's really their job to underwrite what's right for them.
And nor should a law firm engage in that. All a law firm should say is the case warrants the funding. We approve of the funding. That's all. And then sign the acknowledgement and stay out of it. You know what I mean? Because the lawyer doesn't want to get into that. As long as, listen, a good funding company would fund up to 10 to 12% of the total value of the case, assuming there's coverage. They would do it in pieces. They wouldn't do it all up front. And they would charge 27.8%, which is what we charge. Our funding companies use our contracts at 27.8%. And a client's credit card, just remember this, is usually 28% compounding plus. So this is better money. And we say to funding companies all the time, come on our platform. You can fund all the claims on our platform. You just got to use our rate, our terms.
But why can't they do that?
They can. They just don't want to acknowledge our rate. Now, some of them have. We have some great funding companies on board.
Well, you're saying the reason that they're not able to do that 27% is because they have a lot of costs.
Sure.
That maybe they would have to reduce.
Let's say they have a cost of capital. Let's say it's 10, 12, 14, 15% to pay for the money they get. Some of these companies have hundreds of employees, sales teams. You see them at all the conventions and everywhere. They got to pay all of them. So by the time they get started, they're at 30% already. Now to make money, they've got to go over that, and they've got to build in losses as well. So they can never get to this rate. What we did was we solved that problem because we took away all of the overhead. There is no overhead for the funding companies. The only thing they need to do on our site is underwrite the claim, which we give them all the information for, and click a button. So all of that cost is gone. So they still have their cost of capital, but now they can make a 12, 13, 14, 15% spread on the money. That's legitimate, and that's what their credit facilities require. That's how we built it.
So prior to you, there was no marketplace for funders. It was the Wild West.
Yes.
It's like, hey,
Fragmented.
you can work with this person, but there's no
Can you think of a
marketplace.
legal industry without standardization?
No.
It's only funding.
So you create this. People didn't know what it was at first.
Yes.
How long ago did you start this?
Our first funding was April 29th of 2023.
Okay, so we started 20. I think that's right when I met you.
It is right when we met in January of that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the initial reaction from the funders? You're stirring the pot again, Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy's back. Jeremy's back. I won't use the words that they used, but they involve F and crazy and out of your mind and go F yourself. We're never going to acknowledge the rate. We're not going to acknowledge it exists. You're going to fail. There's no way you can sustain this. Law firms don't pay back the way they need to. They're going to want to reduce every claim. Well, parts of that are true. You just have to work with the law firms and partner with them to make sure their clients are getting the best rate and the payback is sufficient for the funders. We're working 3 parties: lawyers, plaintiffs, and funders. So we're kind of the glue between all that. And that's what we've become good at. And the reaction, Jen, is still today from some of those funders. we're going to ruin you, we're going to eradicate you, no chance you're going to survive, all of that. But look,
You're like, come at me.
I've been there before. This is not new. But it works. And anytime you can standardize an industry with democratization, which is what we're doing, and we're going to expand funding. So you don't like to use it in your practice. I didn't like to use it in my practice.
Well, I think some of the downsides, which the funders need to acknowledge, is when the rates are so high. First of all, there's certain cases that people just say, we can't even consider funding on this because the rate is so high. It could exceed what the cases were.
That's right.
So it immediately reduces the pool of people that could qualify for funding when the rate's too high.
Mm-hmm.
Secondarily, case managers, client advocates, paralegals have had such bad experiences at the point of settlement that even the people that might need funding that qualify for it, there's such a bad taste in their mouth that they avoid funding even on the cases that really, really need it. $1 million cases, people with surgeries, people out of work. And so, I mean, I know for a fact I've been fired off of cases where my team, the reason is they didn't get funding. And some other law firm is going to get you funding, bottom line.
They are, and the client's gonna settle their case for $100,000 and no $30,000, and they're gonna get no money in their pocket, and it's gonna cause the lawyer a problem. But I believe we've democratized this in a way that funding can be used as a weapon, where the plaintiff's lawyers on cases where the client needs it can buy that client time for a reasonable rate that is better than their credit card, that will allow you to go do your job to get the maximum value. Which, by the way, as you know, if you do get the 100,000 on those 100 cases as opposed to the 40,000, the law firm is making a lot more money.
Correct.
And now you're making the practice a better practice. So it can be used as a weapon because, and one thing I should say is we have a 2x cap. So it never goes beyond double. And it takes 46 months before you double, which is unheard of in the industry.
The same $10,000 you borrow on, this platform, you settle the case in a year. What are they owing?
So $10,000, they would owe $12,780, which is the $10,000 plus. Plus our fee. I don't want to mislead anybody. We charge a flat fee, so it probably would, instead of $12,780, with ClaimAngel's fee, it'll probably be $13,250.
So
I'm making that
$3,000 or whatever.
Yeah, correct.
Which is it's totally feasible.
If you told the client they need the money now, it's going to cost them $3,000, and their case is going to sell. They do it all the time. It's less than their credit card. And I say that again and again, because this is where we change the industry. This is where we can say to you, Jen, your client's probably paying 35% compounding interest on their credit card. Let them take $2,000. It's non-recourse. They don't have to make a monthly payment.
Correct.
And it's better for them.
So when you're looking at all this and explaining it to, the people in the market, what has been their reaction? Like, not the other funders, but just
the lawyers' reactions, once they understand it, have been very positive. We have corralled some of the biggest firms in the country who have mandated that their firms use only ClaimAngel for funding.
And why?
2 reasons, and this is where I get to my expertise now. You have an ethical duty as a lawyer to give your clients the lowest rate you know about in funding, and to give them multiple options, not just your buddy who takes you to dinner. ClaimAngel solves that. We've got 27 funding companies competing for the business, and we are the lowest rate. And by the way, if you know of a lower rate on a consistent basis on every case, let us know. We will do what we can to lower it. But we have the lowest rate, and we have the 27 funding companies, so we meet your ethical fiduciary duties. Lawyers don't know that's their duty.
Your duty is that, very simply, you should not recommend one funding company to a client.
You should not.
You should at least give them
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the choice.
Yes.
What is actually happening?
I mean, there are law firms and legal tech business, legal business. It's relationship based. Everybody knows that. You go to ball games, you go to dinners, you do these things. And then they're friends. And their friends have a funding company, and their friends will fund any of their clients because it's a great law firm, and reputationally they know they're going to get paid back. That's great, except that rate is way too high. And when you can remember this, if you can text a funding company and give them almost no information about the case,
They're not doing any under.
and they'll fund it. Their rate must be high enough to where they can sustain losses for every 10 cases. We don't play that game. Ours is, we need to get paid back on 93% of our claims.
And your underwriting is more extensive?
Not necessarily. So we do an initial underwriting of cases as they come in the sense that if they've gotten funded too recently or it's overfunded, we won't list those. But once they get listed, so imagine a marketplace, they get listed on the marketplace, our funders are actually doing the underwriting. We are building a program to underwrite with AI, actually, but our funders are doing the underwriting. On the smaller dollar fundings, there's less underwriting.
You're just a marketplace.
That's it.
You're the
Uber.
mediator for this.
eBay.
These funders still have the responsibility to do their underwriting. They're just going to have to do it a little more with more scrutiny if they are running off this platform.
That's correct. And they're getting more information.
Which is good overall.
It's great. They're getting more information. So they get to underwrite it in real time for real. They can click a button, but they decide whether they want to fund it. And, the smaller dollars, they do it over a volume. It's okay. They understand there's losses built in. We did a funding last month for $2 million. We did a $350,000 funding, a $900,000 funding.
Well, those would have been very steep on the regular
can you imagine?
fundings.
And those underwriting took a while. Like that was serious underwriting.
A lot of work.
Yep. But we do it all.
You have alluded multiple times to the ethical conundrum. Why has that not come back to bite lawyers yet?
I have a friend who will remain nameless who calls us the Charles Schwab of funding. That's what he calls us. He thinks that we are creating this space. And he believes that one day lawyers are going to get sued. And they're going to get sued in a class action by a group of clients.
Which is a world you're familiar with.
By a group of clients that have been charged 100, 200% when they could have been charged, for example, 27.8%. And the lawyers never vetted it, never looked at it.
Now, in some ways, that wasn't really a viable lawsuit until you created the marketplace.
That's correct.
So you created an avenue now to risk to law firms if they don't choose your solution.
Unintentionally. But yes, we.
But I mean, the duty was still there. It just wasn't easy to.
If the duty's not being enforced, people will take advantage. Listen, look at me. Perfect example. Duty wasn't being enforced by me, and I took advantage of it unknowingly, but I did. And look what happened.
And at the end of the day, this is the betterment of the clients because somebody getting an extra $20,000 in their pocket because they had, fairer funding, it's going to help the client the most.
Happy client, repeat business, referral business, but most importantly, you're doing the right thing.
So why are the traditional funders still being able to fund at the high levels that they are?
Because law firms are still working with them on it. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think we hope to mitigate it and bring it down, but relationships are relationships. One thing to remember, because we're not a funding company, we welcome your funding companies on the platform. And the thing you should ask them is, hey, if you go on ClaimAngel, I'll give you all my fundings, but you got to do it at their rate and their term. We invite them on all the time. So if you work with a funding company that you really like, just ask them, are you going to fund me at 27.8%? Because if they're not, go to ClaimAngel, get rid of your overhead, and I'll designate them all for you.
So you, as ClaimAngel, have a lot of inbound funding requests.
Yes.
So the funders are getting this business. That's the reason to join.
Yes.
Is because you are a funnel now.
Yes.
To new business where they normally had to pound the pavement, try to.
We have well over 1,000 firms that send claims to our site. We have some of the biggest firms: Morgan & Morgan, Mike Morse's firm, Lerner & Rowe, Farah & Farah, Wilshire Law. Some of the biggest firms are funneling most, if not all, of their claims to us that need money because they want to meet that ethical and fiduciary duty. So daily we have well over 100 requests, for funding, and we get those listed in real time, and we can fund. Sometimes the clients get the money as fast as 30 minutes, which is kind of crazy with RTP payments, which I know a lot about the banking. So we've created RTP payments with banking. We've got ACH, we've got Zelle, we got Venmo. It works, and it gets them the money fast. They're satisfied. And one important thing, sometimes you don't want a client to get funded.
Yeah.
Sometimes the client is going to fire you if you don't. It's okay. Send them to us, Jen. We'll get them listed. 27 funding companies will reject them, and we'll take the heat. They'll never know it was you. You tried.
It is very important that they hear that directly from the funding company and they don't think the law firm
Correct.
was the barrier.
Yeah, and we let clients drive buses over our head all the time. That's what we do. If a lawyer's delayed in signing an acknowledgement form, they don't know that. We are partnered with law firms. That's our goal. And if anybody knows about the ethics of that, it's me. And I believe that if law firms actually take a look in the mirror and say, why am I wouldn't pay 50% interest. So why am I letting my client do it when there's 27.8% available? If you actually say that to yourselves, you're going to have a happier client, you're going to have a happier situation. Now, if we can't get them funded because our funders won't do it, now you go to the higher rate because it's a higher risk, and then it's justified. It makes sense. I think we've built this thing that will take, I'd say 5% of all claims in the country get funding. I think we'll get that number up to 12, 15, maybe even more percent once the volume.
The negative stereotypes that have been associated with
So
funding,
negative.
we have to erode that.
And that's why we say all that, not a funding company. We want everyone to know we are not a funding company. We are a marketplace. We are a game changer. We are making money accessible for your clients. Just like for law firms, there are plenty of people out there who make money accessible that are not banks for law firms to grow. It's the same thing. This is just another way of a law firm growing.
So looking back on everything that has happened in your life, would you do anything different? Or are you of the opinion that everything has kind of shaken out the way it was meant to?
So you're giving me a really good way to cop out of that answer and to default by that second answer.
I don't know. What's your answer?
No, I'd do some stuff differently.
You would?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have paid more attention to the firm when I was supposed to. I would have not gotten so full of myself, for lack of a better way to say it. You know, I had 6 floor seats to the Miami Heat when LeBron and Wade and Bosch were there, and I had a suite, and I was putting a target on my head everywhere I went.
Say more about that.
Having a target?
Yeah, because you've talked to me about that before.
Listen, we all think a lot of ourselves. I'm one of those people, along with some of my fellow trial lawyers, who think very, very much of themselves. And when you start getting success and that starts building and you're proving your own narrative, that's what I was doing. I was proving hey, I'm really good at this. I'm proving my own narrative. I wanted to show everybody how good I was. And back then it wasn't billboard advertising really. It was, referral lawyers. 99% of my cases came from referral lawyers. So I would take the referral lawyers to the Miami Heat games, seats on the floor, meet LeBron and Wade and all that stuff.
But people would say, what's wrong with enjoying some of your success?
I was being an ass.
Well, how did that show
I was
up?
shoving it in everybody's face. I was saying, look at me, look at me. And the moment you say, look at me, guess what happens? They look. And when they look for the problems. And when they find the problems, they're like a dog on a bone. They don't let go. So
do you operate differently now?
You know very little about me now. I hang out at my house with my kids. I don't operate the same way. ClaimAngel is a big deal, but I talk about the ethics of it more than anything else. I don't talk about the success of it. I talk about the ethics of it. In life, I talk about ethics now more than anything. And I feel like I've done 2 things well. I was a very, very good trial lawyer and a good dad. Those are my 2 things. Both of those things I've done well. You ask me to do something else, I'm not so good at it. I've become pretty good at running a company like ClaimAngel, but we're not one of those tech companies. This is the other interesting part. I learned my lesson from law. Taking in money from other sources, owing that money back. It's a very dangerous business because in trial law,
up and down.
It's up and down. Your cash flow wanes. Back then, money wasn't available like it is now, and we got into a point where we were way down here. Yeah, which is why money goes from trust to operating, because there's a problem, and people can't handle the pressure, and all of us. And so, ClaimAngel, we've raised almost no capital. We have done 1 safe round, raising under $3 million. We have not raised another dollar. I'm sure our valuation is crazy now, and we have, for the first time, turned a profit the last 2 months, which is unheard of for a startup. And it's because people are starting to get the ethical message. And we didn't put this ethical message out till about 6 months ago, Jen. We stayed back because we tried to get as many funding companies to join us as we could before challenging the ethics of it. You have to run things tight. If you don't run things tight, it will catch up because you're going to have that down year. You're going to have that down moment. And I've run, despite the fact that it's a tech company and you see all these legal tech companies raising millions, tens of millions, hundreds, we're not doing that. We're trying to build it organically, ground up, the right way. And you could argue whether it's the right way. Some people would say, go raise money, go B2C and capitalize on market. And maybe there's some truth to that. But right now we are doing it organically, B2B, partnering with law firms, making sure their clients are taken care of. And I learned my lesson the hard way.
So a lot of people know your son, Logan.
Mm-hmm.
See him in the space.
Yeah, better than me. Yeah.
You have another son.
I do. 2 more.
You have 4 kids?
I have 4 kids.
Okay. But don't you have a daughter too?
I do. She's 19.
Okay. So you have 3 sons and a daughter.
4-year-old son, 19-year-old daughter, 21-year-old son, 24-year-old son.
Got it. What do you say to your kids as their dad, as like life advice, like out of all of this?
Well, they'll tell you I say too much. But I always say to stand up for what you believe in. Doesn't matter what it is, right or wrong. If you believe in it and you have a basis for it, stand up for it. I always say that they're privileged and they're allowed to be spoiled. They're not allowed to be spoiled brats. I've been telling them that since they were young. I do tell them, and I believe this, that you have to have a little, can I curse?
Hell yeah.
You got to have a little motherfucker in you to be successful. You can't.
Seeing if Logan, his eyes raised on any of these.
You can't be successful without it. My middle son, Dawson, is, I guess technically he's middle, is probably intuitively the most intelligent and is D1 football player. Like he's a guy, but he doesn't need the motherfucker. So he doesn't display it unless he has to. Whereas Logan, you can see it when he's walking around. And my daughter is the mirror image of me. So it's the same thing. You have to have that, but you have to do things the right way. Martin Luther King's quote, and sometimes I butcher it, but there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
So true.
That's true. And so if they can live by that and find success, it's great. And the beauty of what happened to me, there is one beautiful thing that happened. You wouldn't think getting disbarred is beautiful.
All things are in perspective.
I got 6 years to hang out with my kids. Now, they might tell you that was horrible, but I got to watch them at practice. And
you wouldn't have been around.
Would not.
And you said you're not one of the number one things you've done well at is
Number
be a
one.
dad.
It's my best. It's my best. Whether they agree or disagree, anybody who meets my kids, I think they all say the same thing.
And you have no idea what that investment, might deliver in the future, or had you not done that, where you might be now.
So we did a couple of things when the kids were younger. So they were big time athletes, all of them. And we spent a lot of time so I grew up with nothing, great parents, but nothing. And so the first thing I did when Logan was 5 years old is I drove him straight to the worst part of Miami, the worst part of Fort Lauderdale, to play his football and basketball.
Is that where you grew up?
I grew up not in the neighborhood we went to, but the same neighborhood closer to us.
In Miami?
Yeah. Hollywood, Florida, technically, but yeah, Hallandale, Florida. And I brought them there, and, they were the minority by far. And they loved it and embraced it. And they got their ass kicked left and right. When you see kids who want something so badly because it's their only way out, and you get to experience that. And what happened was Logan and Dawson and Cameron became great friends with these kids. And these kids ended up going to their school in middle school, to their private school. And then they went through high school, and we developed back at the time Nike Team Florida. And so the basketball team, the football teams, and there's about 150 kids that ended up going Division I scholarships through the program. About 60 something kids went to the high school. Many of them are pro athletes now. Logan's best friends, Zay Flowers, who plays for the Ravens, Scotty Barnes, who plays for the Toronto Raptors, Jet Howard, who plays for the Magic, Taylor Hendricks, who plays for Utah. Like big time athletes that Logan and Dawson were part of those teams And that taught him more than anything you could ever teach, because to see hunger and to see, these kids grew up in our house. They were part of they still are. We have season tickets to the Ravens because we go watch, and we go to Toronto, and these are his brothers and Dawson's brothers and even Cameron's brothers, which is nice for, most families would be like, how are you putting these kids around your daughter? These kids were amazing, like amazing kids. So that was a life lesson that I got to do because of the disbarment. It helped because of the challenge of what I was going through in the disbarment.
You give them a lot of advice about having an ego.
You can have an ego. You can't be arrogant.
What is the difference?
So people may perceive you as arrogant because of the way you come off or the way you dress or whatever it is, but that's a perception. Arrogance itself is you acting like an ass because you think what doesn't stink. Okay? It stinks, just like everybody else. And you can be confident in yourself and know that you can accomplish the task, but you can't tell everybody about it. Arrogance is telling everybody. And to be fair, that's what I did when I was back there. I was telling everybody.
You feel that you drew, obviously, unnecessary attention to yourself.
Yeah, it was a good life lesson for sure. I put a target on my head. It was warranted. I was delivering behind. I mean, I was walking the walk and talking the talk.
The naysayers would say there's a lot of people that hide out in life and don't go for the gold. They don't get to where you got because they're afraid of people going to come after them. So you don't want to go to the other extreme where you're hiding in life.
No, I wouldn't do that.
You're not even taking a chance because you're afraid of the backlash that could come.
Michael Jordan, I forget his exact quote.
You're going to be the best. You're going to have haters, right?
Yep. Michael Jordan missed thousands of shots, hundreds of game-winning shots, and learned more from his failures and his success. I've learned more from what I went through
than any success.
I've enjoyed the success more, but I've learned more.
The success
way more. But I've learned more from the failure.
Yeah, I just think it's a really hard thing to balance, being confident and sure of yourself while also being open and humble. And it's not a simple algorithm.
Now listen, Jen, every day I go talk to somebody about ClaimAngel. Drives Logan crazy, by the way. I explained to them what happened to me. It's first thing out of my mouth. I spoke this morning.
You have to lead with it.
I spoke this morning, but it was a panel and I couldn't lead with it, but I always lead with it. But it's when you have that humility on it because it happened, that's because you have to. When you can have humility on something and it hasn't happened, it's much better. I do it because it happened. I should have had humility on it before it happened. That was my fault. And it's, if you can't learn from that, you're definitely doing something wrong, or you're an ostrich and you got your head in the sand and there's no way out of it. ClaimAngel was built on that failure, on that knowledge. And if we can build on our failures, we will succeed. We will succeed. And I wouldn't run away and hide. I definitely had thoughts of it.
I really admire the ability you've had to embrace the story, the lessons. You're very resilient. Mm. There's a lot of people that would run away.
I've seen it happen.
You never hear from them again. They're not willing to take another risk, do something different. They're not looking for the lesson. They're staying in victimhood. Mm. I think your story is very compelling, and, everything you're doing now, I kind of see that I can connect the dots.
Think about waking up every day for 6 or 7 years. And let me be clear. It's not cancer.
No.
Okay? So cancer, that's a whole different animal. It's not cancer. But waking up every day, and still today, if you were to Google me, the first thing that would come up is alters misappropriated funds, alters heat tickets.
You feel that haunts you still?
Obama's creep. They call me Obama's creep. Okay? Capital C, capital R, capital E, capital E, capital P.
So that hits the ego.
I mean, I kind of like that one. That one I like, but it's I have to explain myself everywhere I go. That's my fault.
And previously you didn't.
My reputation preceded me. It's
such a flip.
Right. It still precedes me, but if it's based on what they read,
that's negative.
And most people only read titles, not articles. So it's negative. So I'm explaining myself. Now, open-minded people, when you explain it to them, they're like, I get it. And they don't mind. And everyone's been through something.
Oh, yeah.
And if they say they haven't, then they've been hiding.
Yeah, they're not.
They've been hiding. So everyone's been through something. And like I said, it's not cancer. And it's bad. It hurts. It took away what I was passionate about. Let me rephrase that, because that's not fair. By doing the stupid things I did, I took away what I was passionate about, which I was naturally gifted at. Probably the only thing I'm naturally gifted at was talking to 6 people I didn't know.
You know, I had a conversation last night at dinner with Joe Freed. I don't know if you know him.
I do. Joe and I spoke for almost 2 hours yesterday.
Yeah, so Joe does a lot of mindset work. I've done a lot of mindset work. What we were talking about is his question, which is like, what if everything that happened, you know, was for your best interest? And like, he was even talking about it in some pretty extreme examples. And so he was saying, like, had this not happened, had you not been disbarred in this scenario, let's apply his thinking. You know, what if you would have got on a plane to fly somewhere to try a case and the plane crashed and you die? Like, you don't know.
Nope.
And so whatever we think is the worst thing is typically what Joe would say is
He's right.
Cancer. Whatever it is, maybe you would have been so stressed out you had a heart attack. Who knows?
And my likely trajectory, because I was so naive to myself, probably wasn't going to be good. It was going to be successful, but it wasn't going to be good. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, Jen, but I don't drink. I've never drank. Don't smoke. Don't do drugs. Don't gamble.
So you didn't have any of those vices?
No, but my vice was attention and success. And when that's your vice, it's dangerous as hell. And I would not have known that but for this failure. Would not have known it.
Well, yeah.
Because I know I have weaknesses. That's why the reason I don't drink and don't do that is because I have an addictive personality. I'd be really bad as an alcoholic. I'd be really bad as a drug addict. So if I touch it, I go in. It's like, you know, buying clothes. I can't stop, or eating chocolate. I can't stop. You know, I got to stay away from things. And that became my addiction, was the success.
Previous to that, you had vices in shopping?
Oh God, I've had it forever.
Really?
Yeah, clothes. It's bad. It's really bad.
So it's so funny how, like, not drinking, but shopping.
Cars, clothes, and watches,
Gambling.
really bad. Oh yeah. But those are not going to get you in any trouble. The alcohol, the drugs can get you in trouble, which is why I stayed away from them. And I knew that as a young.
Knew. I can't even dabble in those.
Cannot.
You have a very intense personality.
I do.
So speaking of clothes, you made a splash on the scene with your Viore swag.
Yes. We now have Viore and Aloe.
You guys had the nicest swag. People didn't even know what ClaimAngel was, but you had half of Laudira wearing.
Correct. Logan did, yeah.
Because you guys came to the table with like the most expensive shirts, pullovers, good taste. But I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. People want them now a lot, which is crazy to me. Lawyers want everything. Like, it's crazy. Like, everybody's got a little thing, and they'll pick up anything. But these are things you can actually wear and use.
Oh, I have mine.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, you can't beat Viore and
You would never
Aloe.
throw it out.
No, and you'll wear it on the plane, and you'll wear it everywhere.
It's a super savvy move, because one of my pet peeves is crappy swag. Like, just don't even give it out.
What's the point?
You've now put your brand on something shitty that people don't even like.
We spent a lot of money creating our brand and our logo, and it's a C and an A, but it looks like a C with a halo. You know, angel
For
wrapping
your
around.
Religious background.
Yeah, I'm not religious either. Got the biggest Christmas tree in the world, and I'm Jewish, so you know, go figure.
ClaimAngel. We can make a whole religious.
We can. We did this whole thing. So
I'm gonna have you get those Victoria's Secret wings. You can wear those.
We've had that done. Yes, we've had that done. We believe in making a splash, but we believe in the past that splash would have been done arrogantly.
Just
now it's done
with a
as a
Ferrari.
splash. That's right. Well, that's what it would be. That's what it was. That was another one of my addictions, was cars and parking it at the Heat game and going to the fancy restaurants. Don't get me wrong, I still like doing that, but it was too much. And I'm older now.
Wiser.
I'm wiser. I'm smarter than I was. This company can change the face of. It can standardize an entire industry. And when you have that opportunity to do that, it would be like creating a new area of law. You know, like the data processing cases that are out there now that are super lucrative. That's a whole new area of law. That's what we're doing. But I'm doing it smarter. I've got smarter people like Logan and Dawson and Ben. Our CTO was the former CTO of Casper Sleep and the chief architect of Wayfair. Like I brought in really smart people.
Cool.
Yeah. To check my motherfucker part.
Well, Jeremy, thanks for coming on today. Tip the Sales. I hope that this was insightful for our audience. I think a lot of people will get a lot of value out of our conversation.
Thank you, Jen. And one thing I should add, which I should have added earlier, I actually have the opportunity to become a lawyer again if the state of Florida will admit me, if the bar will admit me.
Well, that is going to have to be for podcast number 2 if that happens.
Yes, we'll see what happens. But I don't know if I am going to go down that road. But I do appreciate the opportunity, the way the bar sets it up, because people thought jail this. No, it's a 5-year disbarment, and then you go back in front of them. So we'll see. But ClaimAngel is my priority right now.
I'm excited to see how this unfolds. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.